What am I saying? No idea. I don't know English. Okay. Hello, and welcome to a new video. My name is Smriti, and today I am here to talk to you about the books that I read in November. Now, I read 11 books in November, which sounds like a good number, right? But actually, not really, because all of them were pretty short except for one chunky chunkster. And 50% of them I read in 24 hours because, yeah, I don't know. I have an entire vlog talking about the 6 books that I read in 24 hours. So I will link you to that and I will talk about those books in the end because hopefully you would have watched that video and heard my thoughts on it. But in this video, I'm going to talk to you in more detail about the 5 other books that I have not spoken to you about on camera. So here goes. We'll start off with the non-fiction books because November is non-fiction November, which is a time where you're like sort of encouraged to read more non-fiction in life. And I read 3 non-fiction books, out of which the chunkiest of the lot, which was honestly like a book that I was really intimidated by, is this one, which is Secondhand Time by Svetlana Alexievich. I have had this in my bookshelf since 2016, and 7 years later, I have finally finished it. So, yay me! Please, round of applause. Thank you. I will wait while you continue to clap. But yes, I finished this book. It is really freaking chunky, and it is really intense because essentially this book, which is written by Svetlana Alexievich, she's a journalist who basically sat down over the past 2 decades, I think, and spoke to people who were there during the Soviet Union, and like what they felt during the like fall of the Soviet Union, like right before and also after, and like what they're sort of dealing with and their thoughts and all of that. So essentially this entire book is just like their record, which is very interesting and hadn't quite happened before because people would always talk about history from like the people who were making the decisions, or like, from Stalin's point of view or from Yeltsin's point of view or Gorbachev, whatever. But they weren't talking about like the history from the people who were actually living it and what their thoughts were on all of these things. Now, she covered a lot of people, and she spoke to like people who were hardcore like communists, to people who were excited about like the fall of communism and all of that sort of stuff. And it's really a really varied bunch of things. Now, just to begin with, I have to tell you, I knew the bare details about the Soviet Union and the fall of it and Russia and all of the things that happened. I didn't quite know too much. So, what I did was, in fact, I went and saw like some videos and like did some research online and just to understand who these people were and what exactly they were talking about, because a lot of things that were referenced were like there were like footnotes, etc., but I felt like I still wanted to understand more of it. So what I'll do is I'll give you like a few like videos down below for you to understand it. Like it was like one of those like those videos where people put like animated thingies and they try to explain it in like 10 minutes or whatever. But I felt like those were really helpful for me before I began this journey, because yeah, they reference so many different things, like what was the Gulag, what was Stalin's like thought processes, who was Yeltsin, like who was Gorbachev, like all of these things I didn't quite know, but through this book I have learned so much about Russia. I want to read more about the countries that were in the USSR. So it doesn't talk only about Russia, but also about like other countries such as like Kyrgyzstan and Belarus and Ukraine a little bit, not so much honestly. But yeah, like I just thought that like it was so very interesting, and like the interviews that she took were till 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and this book was then translated in 2016, and then it won the Nobel Prize in 2016. And I don't know if you can see, but I have marked so many different things here. Like I didn't use tabs, but I have just like dog-eared, just way too many things, because honestly, reading this book was very painful because the sort of things that people have gone through and the just like the utter violence of things was very intense. And like you, I don't know, it was a very, very hard read, honestly, but it was a very, very good read because it gave me just so much of perspective and made me understand this area of the world just so much more. And I look forward to reading more books about like Russia. So I know that Svetlana Alexievich herself has a lot of other books. So like there's a book called like The Unwomanly Face of War, I think, which like my subscriber Khyati keeps talking about. And then like I have that book on my Kindle, and there are a bunch of other ones that like I want to read. But if you have any other books that talk about like Russia, I would absolutely love to hear what your recommendations are, because this was just so intense and like such a deep dive that I feel like I want to dive deeper now. But yeah, I would highly recommend this book if you feel like you too want to understand more about like this place and like the past and how it shapes the country and the people right now. It talks about Putin very briefly as well, so that I think that that is really interesting, and just to see like the sort of like ethics and like ethos that he sort of comes from, like, you know, that I think that like that gives perspective to things. So I would love to like read more about this essentially. I gave this book a 4.5 stars, and I think the only reason why I reduced the zero point 0.5 is because I felt like I had to do some research on things, and like I don't know, it was just a lot. But I don't know, it didn't feel like a complete 5 star for me, even though it is categorically 5 stars. Just the amount of like research and work that Svetlana Alexievich has put in, along with the translator Bela Sayevich. Just amazing, amazing, amazing work. Absolutely brilliant. I've spoken about this enough now, so I'm just gonna stop. But like, yeah, this was the major chunk of my reading, so it makes sense that it's taking up so much of my time while talking about this book. But yeah, after this, another I read two graphic novels which were memoirs, and the first one was Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, and this is about their journey coming to terms with the fact that they are non-binary, and like just all of that sort of stuff. It was about like how they decided to be like a comic artist, and like how they wrote this thing and all the experiences that they sort of went through. I thought that this book was well done, and I really liked the illustrations. I felt like the way that it was illustrated, I don't know if I have like screenshots of the pages, but like if I have them, I'll put it up here. But like it was just really interestingly put, and like that way to show like what's going on in that person's mind and try to convey like the message. I thought that that was really good. However, I feel like I wish I had more love for this book, because like one, the ending was just really abrupt. I felt like it just came out of nowhere, and I was like, huh, okay. And also like I don't know, I thought that it was good but not excellent. So I gave this book a 3 star. I would still recommend it, but not like extremely highly. But yeah, I think I appreciated the art style a lot, actually, to be honest. And then the next book that I read was absolutely stunning. It is Alison Bechdel, who is the person who created the Bechdel test. Her book, which is a tragicomic about her father and like her growing up, and it's called Fun Home. And this is a book that I've been wanting to read, honestly, for many, many moons, many, many years, actually. And I finally got to read it, and I thought that it was really excellent. I loved the way that she wove the story together to make us understand more about her, but also more about like her father, and like yeah, like basically her father passed, and she decided to write about their relationship, and like just her growing up and realizing that she's queer, and like all the sort of things that like she went through with her father. I don't want to like say too much, but I thought that this book was really good. However, I think the one thing that stopped me from giving it like a 5 star was I think it was just maybe too smart for me, because she spoke a lot about like literature and like literary things, like so like Proust was spoken about a lot, and Hemingway, and just like I don't know, a bunch of stuff. And I feel like I didn't quite understand like the things that she was trying to connect with it. I feel like I wish I read those books and then I would go back to this book and maybe I'd have more that would come out for me. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I think that she is like a gifted storyteller, and has told the story in just such an amazing sort of way. Like she will talk about a certain thing and then like come back to it after a certain period of time, and it feels like sort of like cyclical almost, but like I don't know, it just felt like really nice, and it got this really raw picture of like her family life. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I gave it a 4 star. I wish I gave it a higher star, but I'm not smart. So maybe once I'm done reading like Proust and a bunch of Hemingway and stuff, then I'll get back to it and I'll be able to be like, wow, I appreciate this way more. But yeah, still highly recommended. I thought that it was really well done. And yeah, those were all the books, non-fiction books that I read in November. Now let's move on to the fiction books that I haven't yet spoken to you about. And number one is this one, which is My Policeman. I was supposed to do a video for this because I was going to read this book and then watch the movie and then like give you critique. I feel like my book versus movie videos are like jinxed in this year. I have tried to do them a couple of times and they're just jinxed. So hopefully 2023 is going to be that year where I can like do this with full gusto. But yeah, this book was really interesting. Basically, we are following this time where in current day, or like the 90s essentially, there is this old lady who lives with her husband, and they have taken in an old friend of theirs, who is sort of like he has had multiple strokes, and like he can't really like move around or talk or anything. So like she's sort of becoming the caretaker, and she's writing these like books or like journal entries of sorts to him, but is talking about like their journey of how they got to know each other. And essentially the book is about this lady, I'm forgetting, Marion, who is like a teacher, and how she met Tom, who is a policeman, and Tom is in the movie played by what's his face, Harry Styles. And yeah, and then like how they meet this museum curator, and how there is like a relationship between the three of them. I'm not gonna really say much because I don't know what is a spoiler and what is not with this book, but I thought that it was really interesting. It was very well written, and very like evocative. Like I could totally like imagine being in Brighton, which is where this book is set. It just really brought those things to light, and it did a really good job with like the character work. But also somewhere in between, I felt like something was missing, and I didn't quite like love the way the story went. I don't know, it just something felt iffy about it. I can't really put my like finger on it. Finger on it, but like something felt iffy about it. So I give this one a 3.5 star, primarily for like just how evocative and wonderfully this was written. But like, would I wholeheartedly recommend this? Maybe not, but I still think that it was a really good book, and the movie was good as well. But yeah, that's one fiction book down. The next fiction book that I read and haven't spoken to you about is The Past is Red by Catherine Valente. This was a book that I read after I read my 6 books in 24 hours. This is basically following this girl called Tetley, who lives in Garbage Town, which is basically many years from now. The earth is submerged, like basically the world that we know is submerged underwater, and the only things that are sort of like surviving are a whole big garbage dump, like a huge like area of garbage that is just like floating on the seas. And this actually exists in real life. Like there's this huge like area as big as Texas, if I'm not mistaken, like that's just like in the Pacific Ocean floating around. And yeah, like basically people who have sort of survived this like apocalypse, like for example London is submerged by the Thames, and like, you know, all of that sort of stuff. Mississippi took over the US. It's just like it was an interesting time. So basically we're hearing about like climate change has basically fucked us all over, and there are some people who have survived and are living on literally garbage. And we're following Tetley from there. And in the first part we get to know of like something that happened in her childhood that triggered something that made everyone in Garbage Town hate her. And we're figuring out what exactly that is. And then afterwards we also get to see her as a grown-up, now dealing with the repercussions of that and like living her life essentially. And I thought that this book was really, really, really well done. Like I loved the amount of like thought that Catherine Valente put into this, and like how bizarre it all was, and how like crude it was, because there are so many swear words in it. So I first thought that this was a young adult book, and like no, it's not, because like the amount of swear words that there are in this, like for example, we are called the fuckwits because we are the ones who fucked up like the world and earth as we know it. But yeah, like essentially, I don't know, it was really, really well done. I liked Tetley as a character. I felt like the only thing that held it back for me, which didn't make me completely enjoy this, was like the broken up sort of like pacing of this, or like the broken up sort of way in which the story was told. If it was told in like this more like linear, or maybe like not even linear, but like, I don't know, not a broken up sort of format, then I feel like I would have enjoyed it more. And I feel like that happened only because this book was initially just like a short story, and then Catherine Valente like really loved this character and this premise and decided to write more. So it's like the short story and then it continues. So I get it, but like, I don't know, I still really loved it. I thought that it was very smart, and like speaks to like humanity, and like also what can happen because of climate change and like all of that sort of stuff. And I gave this one a 4 star. But I would love to read more of Catherine Valente. I thought that like it was really good. So yeah, those were the 5 books that I have not spoken to you about. The rest were 6 books that I have spoken about. So I'm not going to talk about them in great detail, but out of the 6 books, I gave one book 5 star, which was Assam for the Wild Built, which I have already like read. So it was a reread for me. Then I read the sequel for that book, which is A Prayer for the Crown Shy. And both of these books are basically, again, about a time many, many, many years from now, where basically the machines woke up and self-actualized, and decided that they were going to go into the wild. So now we are living in a world where there are no machines, but the steam monk decides to go out into the wild for some reason, and they find a robot, and then the robot wants to know, what do humans need, or what do they want? And yeah, that's the thing, and like that's the journey that this book series is on. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Next is another book that I read, which was The Hen Who Dreamt That She Could Fly. And this was a really, really sweet book that was translated from Korean, and it's like this fable-ish sort of thing about this hen who basically is living in a farm. She dreams of having her own chick hatched, and she goes on this adventure, and it's full of like love and grit and all of that sort of stuff, and I really loved it. I gave it a 4.5 star again. Another book that I read was another series of novellas, but I read the 3rd book in the series, which is Into the Riverlands by Ning Vo. I gave this one a 4 star. good job. Well done. Love Ningbo. Love this series. Will continue to read it. And then I read The Employees, which is a book which is translated from Danish, which was confusing, but like a good time. I gave it a 3 star by the end of it, but like, yeah. And then the last book that I read for that was The Diary of a Void, which is basically, yeah, a book that I gave a 2.5 star. Now, I'm not going to talk about those in great detail here, so you can just go and check out that like video. I hope that you do. It was a good time, and like I talk about these books in greater detail there, so I hope that that is fine with you. If later on you want me to like not do this and like actually talk about the books in the wrap up, I would love to understand whether I should do that as well. So do let me know. I'm just like experimenting in this one, so yeah, I would just like to get some feedback, but like pretty much that's it. This is my second day of the end of my year series, end of the year series. So I hope that you will continue to join us on this journey. Next, I have a video coming up on Monday, so I hope that I will see you there. In the meantime, it'll be great if you could subscribe or like watch any of these videos that pop up on the screen. And meanwhile, I hope you're doing good, and I will see you in my next video. All right, bye.